Good morning, welcome into the big show, and it's a Tuesday edition, so we've got Dr. Geraldine Tan from the therapy room with us. Good morning, Jerry.
Good morning.
Looking extra pretty this morning, I have to say.
Good morning, Dr. Jerry.
It's the donut light, I tell you.
Don't tell everyone your secret.
That's not a secret. There's no way. If you're ugly, you put two donut lights there, it wouldn't make a difference.
It will double the looks, will it?
That's what you were saying. It's the donut light.
It's the donut light.
Please, she's just naturally pretty. Okay, anyway, today we are going to be talking about the movie Adolescence.
Adolescence, yes. So exciting because it's so trending. Okay, I'm always late in the game, right? It's been out for quite some time already. But everybody is raving about it. So I really needed to watch, and I watched it over the weekend in one sitting.
Yeah, as a lot of people have. It's 100% on Rotten Tomatoes as well.
2 upon 10 for me, Glenn.
Okay.
The worst show I've seen in a long time.
Okay.
Oh,
Acting was bad, disappointing ending, exaggerated, 70% of the time.
Okay, fair enough. I mean,
Yeah.
to be fair, the actor, the boy that played Jamie, I believe, does not have any acting background.
All
right?
of them were bad
and
actors.
I guess it showed, did it?
Only the mom and dad were good
good?
actors. Yeah.
Okay.
I guess it's to provoke thought. I think Stephen Graham wanted to provoke thought in all of us, and provoke it did. A lot of discussions, a lot of thoughts. I think he wanted to angle it, or rather the two authors wanted to angle it towards toxic masculinity. So they were angling it. So there was a little bit of talk about manosphere. Andrew Tate, I think last year we had a session just on manosphere itself.
Yeah.
On Therapy Tuesdays. And there was reference to the red pill, blue pill, and the 80-20. So a lot of lingo. And because it's in the UK, set in the UK, there was a lot of vocabulary that I needed to go and look up. So even the word that was sprayed on the van, the father's van.
Nonce.
The word nonce. And I was like, what is that? Is it nonsense or something, and had to go and look up the meaning, which refers to sex offenders who specifically for young, that they prey on younger children.
Oh.
Yeah. It was
Pedophiles.
Pedophiles, basically.
Yeah, but it's a UK slang called
Okay.
nonce. Yeah. So for those that haven't watched the show, a lot of spoilers today.
Okay, so I haven't watched the show, but just a little bit of background and context of some of the terms that we're using. Now, the concept of manosphere is a controversial network of websites, blogs, forums, and online communities centered on men's rights, male interests, and opposition to feminism. Adolescence is actually not based on a real-life single case, but Stephen Graham revealed that the series was inspired by the growing knife crime epidemic in the UK. The series, he says, is driven by exploration of male rage, and the writers reflected on their own identities as men, fathers, partners, and friends, and found themselves questioning with some intensity who they were as people and specifically as men. Because they say that the country is facing, and I think the world is facing, a new threat of loners, misfits, and young men in their bedrooms who are allowed to access all sorts of material online.
Yep. So that's another issue that was brought up, the issue of the internet and what children are exposed to on the internet. So in the past, we were very concerned about the teens loitering on the streets, gathering together as a group, maybe going rioting, drinking together. So you see these parents being very comforted that the child would come back, in the evening and stick themselves in the room. So that's what many of us parents are going through also. That's why it's a very, very real issue, because we assume that our children are back home and they are safe. But how safe are they in their bedrooms if they're exposed to all these different topics or people that lead them astray on the internet? So that
Yeah.
was something that they alluded to and we're discussing.
Yep. Can you imagine? I mean, parents in Singapore are worried. What about parents in countries like America
That have
and the
gun,
UK?
yeah,
We are
absolutely.
already so, basically here in Singapore, it's already so safe.
Yeah.
But of course, I mean, we will always have, bad influences and stuff like that. And people will always worry about their kids and all that. But just imagine how much more people are going through in the UK and in the US.
I mean, like Dr. Jerry mentioned, right? You think your kids and your home is your sanctuary and that they're safe. Oh, it's
Yeah.
okay. My kids are in their room, they're playing on the computer and all that. But the access that they have to all sorts of nonsense and manipulation and corruption that they can get to, it's crazy. It's more unsafe
But that's
if
where
you can't see them.
That's where good upbringing comes in, right? Because I really think that if you bring your kids up well, they'll know.
But
They'll
it's
know
hard
what
to
is
say,
right and
though.
what's wrong.
It's hard to say because it's very tempting, to go explore things that you're not allowed to explore. Your parents say, "Oh no, remember not to watch porn."
You know what? I'm
not to
all
watch
for
this."
exploring. I did all that when I was a kid.
Yeah,
But,
exploring is fine.
look at how perfect I turned out.
Right? Okay.
So that's another thing that the story also brings up, right? The concept of good enough parents. Have we done enough or not? And it's very, very difficult to quantify or qualify what is
Enough
good
is,
enough.
yeah.
Yeah, and how much more should we do? We look at Jamie's parents, so the main character, Jamie, right? And his parents having those dialogue, debating about what they could have done. Did we do enough? Did we not do enough? But I thought he was safe. How could we control? Is it me? Is it, I tried to be. So the father, Jamie's father, recognized at the end, I think in the last episode, right, that he tried not to be like his father, who wrecked him for during his own childhood, and he said, "I aim not to be like my father," and he didn't, right? So, but he does have a temper. So, there were all these discussions, and it leaves us thinking, really, what is enough for us parents? What else can we do? So that was quite a difficult process as we go through the 4 episodes, actually.
I think, it proves one thing, that our childhood makes all the difference. How we were brought up, I think we've heard this time and time again. When we grow up, right, it kind of like, it gets to us when we grow up. There's still remnants of certain things from our childhood that stays with us. And that in turn affects maybe our marriage, for example. So yeah, childhood is really
Very
important.
important. It's the formative years. That's why they call it.
And for anyone who's planning to get married or whatever, let's say in your 20s, you're serious about your girlfriend or your boyfriend, the standard I see these days is you got to look at their parents.
Yeah, for sure. And the relationship that they have.
Yeah. If
Yeah.
they are in a messed up family, I say run. It'll come back and bite you years later.
But it doesn't always work out that way,
No.
does it? No, it doesn't.
That's the kind of advice I will give to my children.
Okay. No,
You know,
fair
if I
enough,
had
because
children.
it comes from a place where you
Yeah.
have experienced, partners or families that.
Not just me. I'm let's say I'm not talking about myself.
Yeah.
But there are many people. If you look at broken relationships or broken families and all that, right? It always always goes back to that. People
Well,
that messed up
I-
childhood and messed up parents.
But we're all for second chances, right? And you are not your parents. You are not the previous generation, and you have the ability to manage yourself differently. That's what we want to advocate for. Otherwise, you're gonna have people thinking that my life is ruined from the day I was born. That's not true.
Yeah.
It's not true. You cannot allow yourself to think that you deserve bad just because you're born into a situation that is bad. So I don't agree quite with that. I do understand from a parental point of view. We would be cautious and look out for some of the warning signs.
Yeah.
But I do want to encourage people to deal with their unresolved childhood issues.
But don't get me
So
wrong. I'm not saying look at us. No, I'm saying if you want to marry someone, you look at them.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
So yeah, I'll
But we
always.
also do need to see that, for ourselves or for whoever that is going through or had gone through what they have gone through during their childhood, to deal with their unresolved issues. Yeah, and before it's too late in the game.
But the problem is that some people don't know they have issues to unresolve or to resolve. I beg your pardon. You know what I mean? Like some people just growing up, they just think
That's why you can't tell them.
Yeah.
You look at their parents, you look at their family. Okay, bye. Why? But
Red
why?
flags all
no,
over.
I don't need to say anything. But bye.
We have
I
Paul.
guess it's that openness.
Sorry, Dr. Jerry. We have Paul Bala on our Facebook who is asking how much freedom and understanding should we actually give our children?
That's one of the most difficult questions, right? When we give them a lot of freedom on the internet, we don't restrict them. That's when trouble happens. So we do need to educate them, and to let them know what their boundaries are, what they need to look out for. Yes, schools do teach safety on the internet, but as parents, we do need to impart our values also, and to correct them. So how much freedom? I would say it's not about freedom, but to also, when we
Educate them.
impart values, there's always that limitations and boundaries need to stay within, and we need to ensure that they stay within those boundaries.
Welcome back to The Big Show and The Big Show TV. It's Glenn and Angel and Dr. Geraldine Tan from the therapy room. Good morning, Jerry.
Morning.
Good morning. You know, Glenn, earlier you mentioned how we should allow kids to explore and learn
Yeah.
and stuff like that, like in their own rooms and stuff, because nowadays kids are not gallivanting the streets. They're more gallivanting the internet while they're in their rooms, right? I agree, but I also disagree because the universe within the internet is infinite. Whereas the streets that they roam and the borders that we have in any country or any city or any neighborhood is finite.
Okay.
You know where your kids are, you know how much trouble they can get into, and literally where they cross the border. But when it comes to the internet, there is no border.
Yeah.
Unless, like what Dr. Jerry says, you educate them and you put boundaries in, much like a customs border where you tell them they cannot cross over into that world. Because the internet, I tell you, if you go search for, say, I want a pair of shorts, you search for that pair of shorts will lead to something else, all of a sudden you're on a pornography website, which then leads to a dark web website, and it's no end, and then you become curiouser and curiouser.
Never been led to a dark web website.
No, neither have I, but that's somewhere we don't want to go. But you know what I mean.
You know what I mean as well.
Educating them
I do.
is very important also, and also the idea of violence and aggression. I think that is something that we are very. I guess we haven't shared with the young ones enough. We talk about the knife crimes, we talk about the violence, we talk about the throwing the chair. It can start with throwing the chair, throwing something, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And
but-
if we don't curtail it earlier, it becomes a big thing later on.
But where does that violence begin, though?
It comes from the internet. They see these things
You
on
see
the
what I mean?
internet.
That's something that I don't buy. You have to have some kind of innate potential
Anger.
there in order for you to take a knife and stab someone. You can't convince me that someone just watches something on the internet and goes like, okay, I want to stab my friend today.
No, it's not
Yeah,
just like that.
but
It's
this
a
is the
combination.
impression you're giving me.
It's a combination
Yes.
of things. It's not just any child
Correct.
that sees a knife crime and
We've
they'll do it.
watched movies
Yeah.
with, crime and
Violence, yeah.
violence and all that. Did we do the exact same thing? No.
No, it's something that sparks something in them.
So, which is why I'm still saying it's growing up. It's your childhood. My father was a very violent, abusive guy. He used to beat my mom up. Am I like that today? No. Why? Because my mom sat me down and went like, you know what? You need to respect all women. Never lay your hand on a woman. So I've never done
Upbringing.
that. That is just something, a message, right? Because growing up, children see, maybe children will do.
Copy, yeah.
But if there's one parent who can turn things around and balance things out, then everything becomes better.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
at the same time, because I'm like this right now and I'm aware, so I give in to women. And that may not necessarily be a good
good
thing
thing.
either. Right? So what do I do? If a woman disrespects me or I feel like, okay, this is useless, I'm talking to the wall, bye-bye.
You walk away.
That's it. Like a lot of things. You don't want to be tempted, you walk away. You run away. If you're married, someone is hitting on you, what do? Do you encourage it? No. You run away.
Walk away, yeah.
This is what I mean, you see. It's the way you're brought up.
I believe
One
everything is down
parent
to
can
upbringing.
make all the difference in the world.
Yeah.
But when
Okay.
both parents fail, that's when everything goes haywire.
So I really like the fact, and thank you, Glenn, for being vulnerable. Therapy Tuesdays always have everyone being very vulnerable on the show. But thank you, Glenn, for holding that space, right? When you said your mom set you down, so there was a communication channel. There
Yeah.
was an open channel, and that is something that is very important.
Yeah.
Because if one parent is doing something wrong and the other parent seems to enable it and just keeps quiet about it, that becomes an issue. Then that you can have upbringing of a different sort. It's still upbringing, but there's no open communication channel. There's no one to put in those boundaries.
Right.
So I want to pull another character.
But I just
And
want to
that-
say
that
this
is
very
the-
quickly as well, Jerry, because we're going back on the Big Show TV. But I just want to say this very, very quickly as well. I was a child of the 70s, and in the 70s, I know this for a fact. There were many marriages that were violent.
Yeah.
Many.
Yeah.
It wasn't just like what I went through or whatever. In the 70s, it was common. It was
Yeah.
common for the man to be chauvinistic.
Male
It was common for the men to
chauvinistic
be pushing their wives around. It was
Yeah.
common for
The
the
woman
men
to be subservient.
to be
Yeah.
having extramarital affairs.
Yeah.
It was a different time.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely, I agree with you.
But
I
then
totally agree.
at the same time, I just want to say that there were good parents, who managed to
know better.
bring up children who then knew better
and became
you
great
said.
adults. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but you're right though. I mean, there was a lot of that going on in the
Yeah.
70s and 80s. A lot. It almost seemed like it was normal.
My neighbors, the couple, they were fighting with knives, kitchen knives, in the 70s.
dear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, the communication was what we were talking about, So when one parent does something, the other parent don't condone it or don't enable it. And I was talking about communication, and we see that in a very understated character, which is Adam. So Adam is actually the lead investigator's son. And he is there's another issue where he was bullied, but Adam was the one that called the father out and said, "Dad, you are not listening." And he had told the father, "Dad, can I speak to you alone in private?" And the father hesitated, and I was so glad the father said yes to it. And Adam actually was the one that highlighted to the father, "Do you see all the comments on the Instagram posts or the messages? And this is what it means." So that in that particular scene, we see Adam explaining to the father. Now, if the father cuts off the communication and say, no, what do you know about it? It would have ended there and then. So the communication always has to be two ways. I want to open up and you have to receive, or you must feel comfortable enough to receive and open enough to receive. So as parents, I thought it was a very powerful learning, because many times we as parents always think that we know better, you don't know anything. But there in that particular scene, the father was able to, although in his capacity and authority, was able to say, yes, I'll listen to you, son. Oh, this is what it means. And then he was able to decipher or to understand that actually there was cyberbullying from Katie to Jamie that was going on. So that was very interesting. So we talk about communication between parent and child, between parents also. So in Glenn's situation, if let's say a father was beating up the mother, and the mother didn't address it with the child, so no communication or no open communication thereafter, the child would continue to believe that it's the right way to treat a
behavior.
woman, and would perpetuate the behavior because there is no other information to the child stating that that is a wrong behavior.
Yeah, but why was it though? I mean, I knew immediately it was wrong.
How old
So I
were
went
you,
straight.
though?
I was like maybe 6 or 7. I still remember me like going down to try and protect my mom. You know. I mean, my father was not a bad guy. It's just, he was angry at that time,
And
I mean,
didn't
to you,
know
it's like
how to. He didn't know how to vent.
I completely understand. Back in
Yeah,
the 70s, there were money problems.
Yeah.
Everything was, we weren't from a rich family. He was trying. He was working really, really hard, but still not able to perhaps maybe bring in enough. And they would have quarrels about money and stuff like that. It was very, very stressful time, bringing up kids, So everyone's circumstance is different.
For sure.
But what
We
I'm
don't
saying
judge,
is, despite all that, I didn't end up as a serial killer, or a criminal,
or a wife beater, or
a
anything
wife
else.
beater.
Yeah.
Exactly, serial. What do you call divorcee?
Well, at least you can claim to something.
But I don't care, because at the end of the day, for me, it's very, very clear in my life what is right and what is wrong.
And you deserve to be happy. So whatever makes you the happiest, you deserve to do that.
Yeah.
So you're describing you have most control in your behavior, and that's something else that I think in the last episode the father had said, because the both parents were having a dialogue, and we see the mom saying something about like the anger or the violence, and the father saying, I didn't give him this, did I? And the mom said, no, you didn't. So you can't give violence to another generation, or you can't give violence to another person. It is not transmissible. It's not a disease that you pass to the next person, but it is a learned behavior. So it is the environment that may then cause us to react in a certain way.
Yeah. It's not genetic. It's not passed on through the DNA, nothing like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And people should not be too judgmental as well,
For sure.
because that will also affect behaviors.
We're not in that situation. I think
Yeah.
people need to start learning to see things from another person's perspective, because it's very hard to say what happened the second before we saw whatever was said, or the day before. But people are very quick to judge these
The
days.
stress and pressure brings
Yeah.
the worst out of people.
Of course.
And it depends on how much people can take stress and
Yeah.
can take pressure. The moment you can't, you snap.
I mean, like when you said earlier, like you said, oh, your dad was not a bad man. My immediate
I know, I
reaction,
saw.
my
Straight
immediate
away.
reaction is like, what are you talking
Her
about,
eyes,
right? Because
in her eyes,
he
straight-
said that his
Yeah.
mom got beaten up and stuff like that, right? But my immediate reaction is, what do you mean he's not a bad guy? But of course, there are a lot of circumstances behind it it. I don't condone it, but there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind it that we don't know about. And we won't know it until we live in those shoes.
Welcome back to The Big Show and The Big Show TV. Our guest for today is award-winning psychologist from the therapy room, Dr. Geraldine Tan. Good morning.
Good morning and congratulations on your award too.
Oh, that was a good boy award, I call it.
Yeah, it was actually. Just as a recap, I mean, if someone's just tuning in for the first time, Glenn received the Presenter of the Year award here at SPH. Well done.
Thank you.
Friday.
Thank you very much. Thank you. All right, Jerry, so back to adolescence.
Yes, adolescence. There's another area that I want to remind the teens. When you put up material on the internet, please think 3 times over what you put on the internet. So Katie got into trouble because she put her boobs up on and she sent a photo to a guy. I don't know who this guy friend is.
Who's this girl again?
On the show
Katie.
Adolescence.
Yeah, I know.
Katie,
I missed this
the
one.
girl who got murdered.
Katie is... Oh, yeah.
The girl who got
Katie,
killed.
the
Yeah.
girl that got murdered.
That's right.
You know, and she actually sent her photo, I suppose, of her breasts to one of the boys, and the boys then circulated it, you know, to the rest of the school. And this is something that we have dealt with. I've, over the years dealt with a number of cases where girls really were very broken because they thought it was just to one person. They just need to send it to one person and the entire school will be circulating it. Even if there is no face involved, it doesn't matter because people will be, saying, oh, this is whose and whose breast. And they don't care whether you're embarrassed by it or not because you gave it to them. And once there is a footprint on the internet, I
It's
don't know
there
where
forever.
it will go.
Yeah.
But why
Yeah,
though?
so-
Why would someone like Katie do that? I mean,
Because-
she seemed like a very intelligent, strong young lady.
I think it's got nothing to do with that because not girls. People can get very convinced by one person that, if a certain act is done, then it shows the other person that you love them and you care for them and you want to share stuff. And Katie obviously trusted the person she was going to send it to because he had probably said, you're the only girl for me or whatever it was. I haven't watched it yet, but it's very typical.
But you had a lot to say.
No, yes, I know, because there's a lot of this going on.
No, where I'm
even
going-
here in Singapore.
Yeah, but how come have you done it?
No, I've never done it.
How
but
come? Why?
Phones were never around during my growing up time. By that time, I grew up and I adulted and I knew it was wrong. Right? But it is, if I were a teenager now, it
Would you do it?
I may. And that's got nothing to do with me being stupid or smart or anything like that. It's just the relationship that I have with that one person I'm sending it to.
Yeah. So again, the boundaries and the values that we need to let our children know and the safety that we need to let our children know. So how it was then perceived by the boys is that she is weak and that she's gettable. And the more
Gettable, I like that. Gettable.
Yeah.
Loose, you mean
Yeah.
loose.
I'm using the lingo that they use, right, on the show. So she was perceived as weak, even though she was bullying them. She was also bullying all the other boys, right, calling them incels and other names that would provoke them. And that probably sparked the Jamie's anger. And it was appalling because his perspective is that he wished the guy got more pictures of the breasts before she died. I'm like, oh my goodness. Yeah, and so very warped sense of truth and perspective because there is also another part where, killing or violence is better than being sexually assaulted by the rest of the guys. I'm like, oh my goodness, is that even something we think about? Yeah,
So
there
messed
were
up.
a lot of themes. Yeah, a lot of themes that were brought up in the show itself. A lot of touch and go, I feel. Not enough growth and depth in each one of the themes there,
Yeah.
but enough for us to think and reflect. Yeah,
Okay.
I didn't like it.
yeah, very,
Didn't like
very
it at
dark
all.
themes.
Yeah,
You didn't
not
like
because it was dark. I just felt like it
Funny.
was just all over the place, and anyway, didn't impress me at all. Adolescence.
Do you
I
think?
don't think it's very-
Sorry, Dr.
yeah.
Jerry. Do you think
No worries.
with a series like this, Adolescence, that people with parents, people with kids, and people without kids will view it differently?
Perhaps, I mean, the themes are all there. If I must, it depends on my occupation also. If I'm a teacher and I'm watching it, I can learn a lot of what might be going on in a teenager's mind, how I can converse with them, how not to converse with them. The themes are still there, but it would also give us different perspective in our different roles. So one of the episodes was quite interesting because it was the forensic psychologist that was conversing with Jamie in the interview room. So that was quite interesting for me. I need to say this, a lot of people think it's therapy, and that it is not therapy. The psychologist was not doing therapy. She was obtaining
Assessing.
information. Yeah, she was doing a lot of assessment work in there. I thought it was very nice how she held that space. She had very raw emotions. And at the end of the day, when she broke down, I also felt like crying with her.
So for something like this, I know you're not a judge, you're not in the legal system and stuff like that. But how do you think a child like that should be helped after? Is it with therapy? I mean, your personal
So-
opinion.
The therapy would definitely need to be put in place, perhaps also to work with the family. So family work, so individual work, family work to be done with the child and the parents. And I'm glad to hear actually the parents started going for therapy themselves.
In the show.
Yeah, in the
Okay.
show.
I think the boy should have been given the death penalty. Actually.
Huh?
Yeah. He should have been given the death penalty because he brutally murdered the girl. It's as simple as that to me.
Yeah, but it's not as black and white as that. There
It's
were a
like-
lot of circumstances that
So?
led up to it.
But he killed someone, so you need to pay. It's as simple as that.
I don't. I didn't watch it, but I've seen a lot
Watch
of
it,
shows
please.
like that. Yeah.
Watch it. But that's the way it should be. If you're a cold-blooded murderer, you should die. That's the way I see it.
Dr. Jerry,
Because he's going to do it again.
Okay.
do you
I
think
have
this
no
would be a
idea what
repeat
the-
type thing? I mean, you watched it.
It wasn't just a
Yes.
stab.
Yeah.
It was repeated
Multiple.
stabbings. I think it was 7 or 10 or whatever. It was brutal.
Yeah,
So he's a danger to society,
was brutal.
basically.
No, I don't know, because when we watch shows, we only see one part of it,
Yeah.
or a small fraction of it, right? So ultimately, it is the assessment of the psychologist and all the other evidence that are presented that we can then determine what to do with this child. And he is a child. He is only a child, right? Whether he's a menace to society, I don't know, because I didn't do the assessment.
There's so
But-
many
but-
cases like this in the UK, stabbing.
A
and all
child
that.
a child
So
would
many.
be 4 or 5 years old. Okay, a child.
How old is
Not this
was
guy.
he? How old
He's
was
in
he?
his teens.
Like how old? Like
13.
12? 13, right, okay.
13.
Yeah.
I think what was scary, so how that episode went is actually the last session that the psychologist has with Jamie already. And in that last session, we see Jamie challenging the psychologist, being a rather violent. He didn't hit the psychologist, but there was a lot of like chair throwing, a lot of intimidation from him, and that was quite disconcerting. Actually, the episode aside, I'm actually quite worried for the child actor because
Oh.
afterwards then I found out it was one take, and
Yeah.
in that one take he had to depict all these emotions.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my goodness, already without knowing it was one take, I was like, I hope this child de-rolls and not fall into character. But that was very, very uncomfortable for me to watch the change in expression, how he kind of scoffs at the psychologist, how he answers back to the psychologist. Yeah, it was very uncomfortable.
You see, for the sake of a hit TV series, you mess up the child actor. See? See how? See?
No, I
Well,
This
that's
is
what
life, right?
but that's
She's
what
worried.
acting is
The
about,
psychologist
though.
just said she's worried for the kid, not me.
Hey.
The psychologist just said that.
Dr. Jerry, at the age of 13, is a child fixable from something like this? Not the acting part, the Jamie part.
So he is relatively young. So
Yeah.
at that age, they are very pliable. They are
Okay.
very vulnerable, and they can be led well. So if they are taught, if they are educated, guided, there is hope.
Yeah. But if 10 years later, 20 years later, he goes on to murder someone, someone has failed.
I told you so.
Yep.
That- you heard it here first on the big show.
No, but yes, I what I still really advocate, what I took away is, if you do have any issues, please, go to a professional, go and talk to someone.
Get help.
If the teachers, yes, so I do. I do feel a little bit sad because when I watch the show, I wonder how come the teachers are not empowered to manage the students.
Oh my God, they're so
You know,
useless over there.
you-
They're so useless.
I don't know
Useless.
whether they're really useless.
Oh my
you
God,
know.
all of
I
them are
mean,
useless. The police officers over there are useless as
Wait,
well.
in the UK or on
No,
the show?
based on the show. Based on
Alright.
what we were watching, I was just getting frustrated.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, you talk about the police officer whose son had to educate him about what was going on. Why? Why did the son do that? Because the son didn't want the father to look like a fool. That's why. The son wanted to
the-
help the father solve the case
But-
because he was running around like a headless chicken, not knowing what's going on. So the son, although he's not that close to the father, decided, okay, come dad, let me have a word with you. You know, I'm going to tell you this, okay? This is the reality of it.
So the meanings of the messages, right? Or
Yes,
the or what
everything,
was
everything. Please
commented.
go and watch the show,
Yeah, no, I
please.
haven't
Now
watched
you
it.
are irritating me now.
Not everyone has watched the show. You're being irritated because you're reacting to what I'm saying. so-
Jerry is just saying, oh, she's always the last to, you know. Whatever. No, you are the last.
I'm not the last. There are quite a few people who haven't watched it also on our Facebook.
Please,
But
all of
Dr.
you go
Jerry,
and watch.
Someone has said, can you talk about what Jamie was thinking when he lied to his father that he did not do it?
okay.
Time
Yeah.
and time again, he was lying to the father. We just want to slap the kid.
Yeah, it wasn't me. It wasn't me. So he kept saying it wasn't me. You know, I didn't do nothing. I didn't do nothing. In his mind, he truly believed that whatever he did was right, and that's the sad thing. That's why it
It was
was
justified.
So he's a psychopath,
Yes.
right? He is a psychopath, isn't he? Come on, Jerry.
Let's not
Don't be so
diagnose
nice.
him. Don't.
Just for the record, I just want to say I trust the system here in Singapore. If there was a Jamie here in Singapore, I know what's going to happen to that Jamie already.
So I do want to highlight this show, not just because of the show itself, but because of all the roles that we can partake in from the teachers in school, because they are the ones that interact most with the children. And they can pick up certain issues. So when the kids do something wrong in school, don't just go, I'm going to call your mom. I'm going to call your dad. I'm going to tell on you. Don't do that, you know. Speak with the child. Listen to the child. So I hope the teachers do that. I know many teachers are very vested in their students. Parents, listen to your children, because just like Adam, sometimes we do need to learn from them. We don't know what is trending.
Yeah.
An emoji is an emoji for me, but when Adam described it, and he even described all the different colors. For me, colors is color therapy. But when he described it differently, I sat up and go, oh my God, should I be taking notes down?
I've been sending out a number of purple hearts.
So, what does purple heart mean again?
Sex.
Oh my God, Glenn! Okay, don't send purple hearts.
That's okay.
Why?
He's allowed. He's single and ready to mingle.
Okay, that's nice. That is true.
Single and looking.
But not-
I'm not talking about the kids.
No, you're not sending it to children.
Welcome back to The Big Show and The Big Show TV. It's Glenn, Angel, and Dr. Geraldine Tan. Unfortunately, we have run out of time, but we can we can wrap this up.
Yes. So I'm gonna wrap it up with one of the last episode, one of the later parts of it, where the parents are speaking, and Lisa, who's Jamie's sister, is a very mature girl. So she is saying that we're not gonna move out of this town because it will follow us wherever. So that was the summary of it. And the father was quite surprised, very proud of his daughter, and say, how did we make that? That referring to the girl. And the mother has the most beautiful comeback. And she says, the same way we made him, with love, to the best of our ability. And I thought that was very nicely wrapped up.
That's
Glenn has
a
something to
beautiful
say.
wife. That's a beautiful wife. Can't say like all wives are like that.
No.
Because the wife was very respectful of the husband and very understanding, and tried to I think she understood her husband a lot. But if the wife had not been understanding and just ribbed the husband even more, and maybe called him useless or
Oh my
violent or
gosh.
whatever,
And this is all your fault and whatnot.
which is happening in many marriages, where the wives kind of like dig in on a husband who is non-violent, very submissive.
Yeah.
One day that person will snap.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Okay. Also, I think the daughter follows the mom. The dad and the son were
More
closer.
alike.
Obviously.
Yeah, more similar. Yeah.
And it was so irritating, right? The last episode when all of a sudden the son goes, "Oh, mom, dad, I've decided to plead guilty." I'm like, really, you stupid boy? We all knew that. You should have pleaded guilty from the very
start.
beginning, because you're a psychopath.
Oh no! Do not diagnose. There was no diagnosis in the show. There was no diagnosis.
This
in
for
the
the kid. That should be the verdict.
Thank goodness Glenn is not sitting in your seat. Or
Oh my goodness, I should be a magistrate.
No,
I
no,
should
thank
be a
goodness
judge,
he's not.
man.
Yeah. Okay, we gotta go.
Okay, yes, we gotta go.
To
What's
all
your
the
quote?
Parents out there, you made so the quote is from that show. So to all the parents, right? You made all your children with love to the best of your ability, and that is what I want to say to each and every parent.
Thank you,
Okay.
Dr. Jerry.
Thank you so much. Wow.
Thank you. I'll see you next week.
See you next week. Glenn's feeling it.
All right, take care, Jerry. Bye bye.